Okay, so today I thought I would talk about stamping. I love stamping. Lots of people like the effects of it, but are scared of it or not sure how to do it to get the effect that you see other people get. So I thought I would go through a few things so you can try it and get it right. Firstly, the surface you're working on. Now I'm using the glass mat. You shouldn't generally use a glass mat, but I've taken the feet off of mine so that it's flat. Because what happens if you try and use a stamp on a glass mat with feet, especially as wide as my one, when you go to stamp in the middle, what happens is that the middle bends down and you miss the bit that dips, so it won't work. Mine will be alright because, like I said, I've taken the feet off, so you need to consider that, or use just the normal cutting mats, not the glass ones. So that's first off. Now the stamps I'm using, they're all indigo blue. I'm using Giant Bee, Fandangle Feathers and Fleurs 1. Today, just like I said, the way to get good stamping is to use very decent stamps, and these really have always been the ones I like to use. So I've put them on the block. Rule number 1, never have anything around you. If you have other papers or your card under you like this, when you go to stamp, it won't stamp properly. You need nothing else, just your piece of paper. You always take the ink pad to the stamp and pat gently. This is a VersaFine I'm using because it picks up all the fine detail. And then when you go to put it down, don't push. You just press gently to make sure the whole stamp has gone onto the paper. Never push right down, because that is just going to squash the stamp, and that's where you get your blurred lines. Okay. So I didn't do such a great job of that. Sometimes with a new stamp you need to ink it up a couple of times, because this is a brand new stamp I'm using. So I'll do it again. Just to show you. So it's just literally, don't squash, don't like really push. You're just gently letting the ink sink into the paper, making sure the whole stamp has gone on there. There we go. Much better. And that is the best way of getting the perfect stamp. Just those few rules would actually really make a big difference to you. I know it doesn't seem right, but it really does. Anyway, I love this little bee stamp. I mean, look at the detail on it. It is gorgeous. So what I thought I'd do, I'm just going to bring a new piece in. I'd show you a bit of embossing, because many people are not sure about embossing either. So I do have my little bag. When you're using embossing powders, it's really worth using one of these, because it really does, it takes away any fingers that you've got on there. Try not to touch it with fingers afterwards. You need a clear embossing pad. again, it's a new stamp, so I'm just going to rub it. Sometimes that helps. And don't squash the pad into it either, because you only want ink on the raised part of the stamp, so never squash the ink pad, just pat gently. I can't wait to see how this bee comes out. I think it's gorgeous. The detail in it is just amazing. I'm going to do it twice, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a detail embossing powder and then a normal embossing powder, so that I can show you the difference. Especially with the bee, it's got a lot of detail on it. So I will start with Detail Gold. I'm going to bring this bit of paper back in. Doesn't matter how much powder you use, because it will go back in the pot. I love that bee. So I'm sure most of you have got a heat tool. I've just got one of these ones. There we go. So as you can see, it's picked up all the detail, even the tiny little specks. So I'll just put that back in, and then I'll do normal embossing powder so that you can see the difference. So, pat gently. Got a feeling that one's a bit dry. There we go. Sorry about that. Overuse. Like I said, always remove other paper, because that will stop the print. Stamping can be so enjoyable. This bee is amazing. Sorry, go on about it. I love it. Okay, so now I'm just using a normal embossing powder, not a fine detailed one. Don't pat it off too much. Some people say it's better to heat from underneath. I personally don't mind either way. I don't think it makes a lot of difference. So there's the two, and you can see you get a lot more detail showing up. If I just now do it with ink, what I'm going to do is wipe it with a wipe, baby wipe, to get the embossing ink off. And if I just do it with a normal ink, actually let's use a different colour. I love this smoky grey, it's just more gentle than a black. If you don't like the harshness of the black. It's still VersaFine ink. Let's do it up here. And like I said, don't squash it, just hold it firmly, let the ink take. So, that top one is normal ink. And then you've got embossing powder, and then, sorry, I'm trying to do the camera. There we go, detailed embossing powder. No, that's the ink, I apologise. So, normal ink, embossing powder, detailed embossing powder. What a lovely stamp. So there are many things you can do with stamping. Many things. I think I've gone over the basics. If you have any more questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer anything. Don't think that your question is silly. It never is. When you start crafting, or when you're not sure about anything, no question is a silly question. One other thing, when you're using this, you hold it and move slowly. Don't do it like this. That won't work. You hold it and just move it slowly over each piece, like that. That is the best way to do it. Okay, so I think I've covered everything. If you want any more details, like I said, leave me a comment or get in touch and I'll answer them best I can. Okay, thank you. See you soon.